beautiful people. Thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel. My name is Cumber and I've been facilitating and empowering people to change their own lives in their own way, whichever way is right for them, so they live a happier, more fully engaged life for themselves. So I've been in the healing world now for over 25 years with the public, and over that period of time I've practiced Reiki healing, soul healing, intuitive healing, positive psychology, all sorts of different modalities, that I've learned from many places around the world and some fabulous, fabulous people, both in the physical realm and in the unseen realms. So what I am bringing today is really my learning from all of the clients I've seen over this 25-year period of time. I've met thousands of people and had so many different sessions that I've learned a lot really about behaviour and how to successfully navigate our way through our old wounds. So I'm presenting here with you today how to heal our old wounds, because some old wounds go very deep and they're a bit tricksy at times at hiding and manifesting in different ways. So I thought we'd address it. So one of the things that I grew into over time was developing a 2-year professional healing course called Healing and Vibrational Medicine that I've taught many wonderful people that pathway over a 2-year period, where the first year is we look at and we heal ourselves, and then we look at how we interact with the world other than self, and how that whole thing works, whether it's animal healing, earth healing, people, situations, buildings, whatever it needs to be, because energy is energy, frequencies are frequencies, and it's everywhere, permeates our life all of the time. So the more we can get used to frequencies and energy and that whole world of potential, the easier life becomes, because we understand how the universal laws work with the energy. So for me, in my personal healing sessions, I've been very fascinated about the seed of any wound. You know, what happened at the real beginning? And I use my intuitive self, my Wasia self, to actually go into that and find out with other people's higher selves what actually happened, or what were the circumstances, or what was the energy or emotions or feelings at the time that produced this particular disharmony, this wound that's been carried on throughout life and shaped us thus far. I'm very, very confident about perfect divine timing. And so if you're watching this, when you watch this all the way through, it means you're ready to heal. You're absolutely ready to heal. You're absolutely ready to find out what that wound is and what to do with it. So I've learned 5 things. I'd like to put it down to 5 different things. The first one is acknowledging that there is a wound. Actually willingly facing up and acknowledging that there is a wound. Some wounds go so deep and so hidden that it might sound absolutely daft that you've cut yourself and that you're bleeding, and you're like, Carol, how can I not acknowledge that there's a wound, or if it's a broken bone, or you know, something like that. They're the easy ones. They're the easy ones. It's the ones that are hidden in your heart, in your belly, in your body somewhere. And that might be on the mental field, and it might be on the emotional, all sorts of different ways of interacting. But your first point is to acknowledge that there is a wound in the first place. Okay. After that, excuse me, I'm just looking over to my left here because I have an ancient dog called Charlie, and he's just decided to join us. I absolutely love it when he starts to wander in and out of the rooms, and lend his energy. I always feel as though whatever's in the room with us, we're projecting and sharing that energy. And when I set up for this one, I've set up with that intent that you receive some of this lovely, loving, energetic healing that you would receive if you were with me now in a personal one-on-one, which in a way you are. Okay, so number one is acknowledging that there is some sort of wound. The next one is to identify what the issue is, identifying what the behaviour is that you are no longer satisfied with, identifying what that itch is, if you like. So the first is, yes, I've got an issue, I've got a problem, I've got a challenge, whichever word's right for you. Next one is, and my challenge, my wound is, and be able to name it. There's something extraordinarily powerful about willingly stepping forward to meet ourselves in the land of truth. It's just amazingly powerful to go, yeah, I've got that wound, and yeah, this is how it manifests. These are the symptoms, if you like. This is the thing that makes me feel really uncomfortable, and I really want to change. Because it's not until you've actually identified what that is, that thing is, that you want to change. I mean, how can we actually change it into something else if we first can't actually acknowledge and willingly face what our issue is? So do you know the name? Do you know you have an issue? And if so, what is it? What actually is it? Okay, so the third thing is, when you've identified what it is to find help. We are in an amazingly interesting time of the evolution of mankind. And you can find some of the videos from me about third dimension to fifth dimension. But we're in a time where humanity is changing, and therefore old paradigm ways of actually healing, I believe, don't have as much sway as some of the new ways, some of the different ways. The energy that we have today supports a different way of doing it, which I'll go through in a moment. But we need to find help. Unity consciousness is all about community, it's all about togetherness, it's all about you owning your right for you and your life, and you're the master of your own mind. You get to say and do exactly what you are needed to do, and in so doing you bring that unique signature of who you are to the life, and for everybody to enjoy and to share, or not, depending on what that energy is. But doing it all yourself is actually sometimes a distraction. Sometimes it's because we haven't got enough courage to ask for help, and we all need help. I certainly couldn't have done the work that I do. I think, you know, we need help. I go for acupuncture or some shiatsu or some healing or massage or walks in nature or chats with other people who know about this stuff. There's so many different ways of actually self-caring and self-loving yourself. But if you're in a field of assisting and being of service to the light and to people and to situations and the world, then you do need to actually ask for help, take the help, and enjoy the help. It's a great way of meeting some fabulous people too. There's some fabulous people out there who are willing to help in all sorts of ways. So the next stage is doing the work. So if you go to somebody and you're spending good hard-earned money or easy-earned money, whichever way you want to look at it, and you have an engagement with that person and you come out of there thinking, those were great ideas, really love that, and then you don't do anything. Well, everything's in perfect timing, so maybe the timing isn't right for you. Maybe the timing was enough to have that one session, receive that information and let it percolate for the next several years before you do the work. But when you do the work, and you know, anybody that knows me knows the word work is a little bit alien to me. I'm sort of like, you know, it's nice to live what you are and do what you do as opposed to work at it, because work sometimes has a heaviness to it. And I think just living is I like that word better. But anyway, doing the work is really important. It's really, really important. It's employing the new knowledge that you have, so that as you actually face it with other people, use people, ask people, invite people, go and get the help you need in whichever way is right for you, and then use it. Use that knowledge that you've just been given. Use those ideas to work on yourself, to play in the world of energies, to start to change your frequency and your vibration. Now, a lot of work now is much easier to do than it used to be, because there's a lot of high energy and high vibrations around, so that actually when change is made, it's very, very fast and it's manifesting extraordinarily quickly. It really, really is. But step number 5, basically, after you've done the work, whatever that work is to enjoy creating and living your new story. Enjoy creating and living your new story. You see, wounds have old stories in them. I mentioned briefly last week in the energy update for December, Gaia was saying, she gave us an analogy to say, you know, if you cut yourself on your hand, you bleed. And the natural instinct with our reptilian brain is survival. We must stop it bleeding. If we bleed too much, we die. So there's an instinct there that comes over and it says we must stop it. So we do something to stop the bleeding. And of course, our magical, amazing biology does that for us majoritively in most cases. And so we stop the bleeding. And so for some wounds, there's always a bit of shock that goes in when we go, ow. Whenever you have an example or an experience where you go, ow, then there's a shock. There's some shock in there that's gone into the system. Now, shock is more about you need to move to actually move that through your adrenal system and be free of that. But if it's a sort of like superficial wound, it goes and you grow new skin. Look at that. You grow new skin. Biggest organ in the body. You grow new skin. And from that point, you can forget it. And sometimes the shock stays in the body, even with a small cut. Sometimes the shock stays there, and you get another shock and another shock and another shock. That eventually affects your adrenals. It affects your immune system. All sorts of things can start to manifest with shock. So kissing it better, loving it better in that moment. There's great delight in some of the old ways. So kiss it better. That's like, gets rid of the shock. So kissing it better actually really does work. Physical contact, you know, releases that oxytocin, precursor to serotonin, happy hormone. It's like really important. You know, if nobody else is around in that instant, do it for yourself. That physical contact is always available, as long as we have some limb somewhere to be able to do that for ourselves. So what you were saying was that you get this, and some wounds are much deeper, they scar. You know, as you're actually healing, you get a scar. Now that's a visual reminder of a wound. It's a visual reminder of a wound. So when we see it, it's like a trigger point. It's like a trigger that actually allows us to go into that old story. Now, every single human on this planet has wounds of one sort or another. I do, we all do, everybody has them. The difference is, what are we going to do with that old story? So, I've got a beautiful scar on my knee, absolutely fantastic scar on my knee. It's impressive, really. Now, when I think about that scar on my right knee, I can play you now and I can tell you absolutely everything that happened to produce that scar on my knee. I can tell you the whole story. But I don't feel any pain as I'm retelling the story. So the distance in time, that was a very long time ago, and the distance in time has actually diminished or got rid of the pain, but I've still got the memory of the event. If you pick the wound, if you go back and you tell that story over and over and over and over and over again, what Gaia was saying last week was really interesting, was it deepens the wound. It sort of attracts, I think Abraham talks about this, about, about that as well, about when you're actually putting attention on anything, it gets stronger. But this is really interesting, because Guy came up with the idea that wound A is when you first had that cut on the hand, and then it healed and it was done. And when we are telling our story 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, whatever it happens to be, it's not the same story really, because that was wound A. Now you're talking about B, and then C, and then D, and then E, and then F. So it's from the same root. It's from the seed of the first initial shock, the first initial ow moment. That's the first story. But by the time you've gone, I don't know, 6 months down the lane, 12 months, whatever it happens, nanoseconds really, you are a different person. And because you're a different person, you've lived a different life, you've had experiences, you have a different perspective, then when you're telling that story again, you're telling it as wound B, goes on top, and then C, and then D, and then E, and F. And by the time you get to X, Y, Z on your first round of the alphabet, it's quite large, and it gets larger and larger and larger and deeper and deeper and deeper. So, one of the things in our 5 is acknowledging what that challenge is. That's why it's so important, because which story and variation is it? Is it L, M, N, O, or is it the A? It's really important to try and get to the A, not the X, Y, Z one, but this version. So acknowledging that that is there in the first place and finding out what that is together. Those two are together, and that forms your seed. And if you've got the seed, it's like anything else. If you nurture it differently and provide the nutrients needed and the amount of light and water and everything else that a seed needs to grow, that sapling of a tree that needs to grow really well, you provide a different environment now from your older, wiser you, whether that's 5 minutes later after your hour or 50 years. Doesn't matter. Time is irrelevant. It's just about the amount of... So no matter how many piles of other versions of that same story you've told yourself and you've invested in and you've fed over the years, if you get the one that is A, it's like a domino effect. You can just set the dominoes off and it'll collapse the whole timeline. That's evident in lots of the work that I've done and many others. So you get to acknowledge what it is, identify it, and then what we're doing there is we're giving ourselves the help now to acknowledge what that old story is, and we're starting with help from others to identify what our new story is. Not anybody who's going to give you the story that you should be living. That is really old paradigm. I'm talking about empowering you so you create your new story. You know, that story I could tell you now about my right knee is the same story that I could tell over the years, but I have a different sensation about it now. I've settled with it. So I've healed it so it no longer owns me. It's a memory that is no longer charged, and I'm no longer triggered by it because of the work I've done on it. And the new story I've created, which is about my life, which is bigger and better and more than the one I was at that time, the person I was at that time. Okay? So, acknowledge there is an issue, name what it is, go get some help in actually identifying what your new story is. I mean, it's like, I love stories. The stories are so amazing, but, you know, if you've got a story that you just want to be free of, you're bored of it, you've had enough, it's too blooming painful, You can do this. I know you can do this. You can feel that healing energy I'm sending to you. You've got this. As Vicky said last Christmas, you've got this. You really have it. It's okay. This is your time to be free. This is your time to create your own new story. Who are you without the old one? Who are you as you create your new story? Okay, so I'm going to finish this particular session that we're having. I feel like you're in the room with me. So this is you now. It's from, there are 3 different card decks. If that feels complete to you now, press that finish button, and I wish you well, and I love you, and thank you for joining me. But for anybody who's interested in cards, I've got 3 card decks here that came with me this morning, and this is about enjoying and creating and living your new you. So the Spirit Animal cards, Colette Brown Reed. She wants to give you a message. This card deck has given you a message that will actually speak to some of you, okay? Number 1, Ant Spirit, time to collaborate. So that to me feels like it's confirming for sure that we need help. We need help from each other. We're a soul family. I've built lots and lots of my Enchanted Lands experiences and stuff. It's all about soul family. We do this together. But first, to be able to do it together, we need to own who we are and face up and recognise and love who we are. So the Dragon Oracle cards by Diana Cooper, we've pulled out, I pulled this one for myself this morning as well. It says, Golden Orange Dragon, expand your light for ascension. Be a peaceful warrior, help those in need, and remember your magnificence. So warrior up, get that bit of the courageous heart, the wisdom heart, the adult and the inner child heart, put them together and see what you can come up with. And last but not least is the Angel Tarot cards with Radley Valentine. Oops. And this one is Ace of Earth. The inflow of abundance is now yours. You know, when we're thinking about creating our own life, taking the reins, cutting through all the dross and excuses and distractions and facing up to the truth of reality, and then carving out a new reality is available to everybody, whatever situation you're in. A promising business venture, this one's talking about, important documents or contracts, flow of abundance feels lovely. Let's see what you think of that one. So abundance to me isn't just financial, it is financial as well, but it's also about abundance of love and joy and fun and all the positive stuff that life does have to offer. I wish you well, lots of love. Please comment in the field below about lots of stuff that we've covered today. If I can be of any help, I would be very happy to do so. Lots of love, everyone. Bye for now.